military service, aviation, and yes, 4 decades in technology.
It's a left for me too as well. Right?
I
Full of
guess it's
lies.
just a lot of coffee,
Yeah, I
I
think
guess. Oh, it's so funny. That's
yeah.
fabulous. 38 years, like my wife says, 5 happy years.
We've been married 40 years.
It sounds like I got a 60-year career, and I'm only 63 years old, right? Quality's not a gate, it's a state.
All right, folks, welcome to yet another episode of the Think QA podcast, where we talk all things quality engineering and quality excellence. I'm your host, Akshay Agarwal, joined by my co host, Kapil Dev. And today we are diving deep into what it takes to build truly agile, high performing organizations in an AI first world. We are thrilled to have with us on the show today Tom Churchwell. He has a fascinating background that spans military service, aviation, and he has 4 decades in technology. He's passionate about helping teams disrupt the status quo, redefine the rules, and creating high performing, self organizing teams that thrive in environments where speed and agility are paramount. Tom, welcome to the Think You podcast.
What an introduction. Goodness.
Welcome, Tom.
Thanks.
Tom,
I'm glad to be here.
It's good to have you here, Tom. Any thoughts? Any expectations?
I have
From the Think You
I have no
podcast from us?
expectations. I have known Kapil for ages. And when Kapil invited me, I was like, absolutely, of course. So I have actually no expectations and I have no agenda. Wherever you guys want to go, I am happy to go.
Sure. So how about we start with your unique background because it fascinates me, right? I read your bio and it says career in aviation, military services, and then 40 years in technology, So, I mean, two domains where quality isn't optional. It's literally life or death. So how has this background shaped your approach to organizational transformations?
Oh boy. So actually, there's a lot there to unpack. So quality isn't optional. So we got to unpack that a little bit. So it's a funny thing that you mentioned that I was in the military, right? I was in the military. I was actually born in the military. So the first 39 years of my life. There's a funny thing about. Have any of you guys been in the military? No.
No.
Okay. So I'll give you some insight. Inside the military, we view quality a little bit differently. So there's an old saying in the military, you might have heard of it: improvise, adapt, overcome. The reason we have to improvise, adapt, and overcome a lot of times is because all the equipment that we have was provided by the lowest bidder, and 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 so we in the military a lot of times are expected to overcome just about any impediment that we encounter, and that's just part of the ethos of people who are selflessly serving their country. Yes. So there's a certain kind of person, a get it done no matter what kind of mentality that military people, either you have that going in or you develop
Right.
it as a matter of having to overcome a whole lot of obstacles, right? And so the importance of safety, like you talk about aviation. So military is one thing, high quality stuff, cool. There's so much to take care of, and there's so much attention that has to be given to it because, as you were saying, unfortunately, sometimes things go wrong, right? And the consequences are significant. But the notion that everything that we get in the military is of the highest quality, that's
Right.
actually not the case. That we are actually trying to overcome a lot of times things that were not put together perfectly, right, to begin with. And so that becomes part of it. Yeah.
Has that changed though? I mean, because 40 years. So you started off in defense services, and then how did you find that transition? And you think, I mean, are there any parallels at all? Your learnings and learning to adapt to your surroundings, to overcome challenges. You said that everything. I mean, it is often perceived that everything that is there in military or aviation, it's of the highest grade, right? But you just bunked that myth that it's not.
I'm glad that we're on the same page when we realize that the
Right.
perception that we've been and I just want to emphasize that it's not that things are low quality. It's that the military is a functioning part of a political system that produces the things that are necessary in order to do the job, right? And so we can't go into it with an assumption that that political system produced the very best solution for it. The human beings, the soldiers, they are so dedicated to overcoming whatever the obstacle is, whether it's internal obstacle a field obstacle, people, whatever the obstacle is, there is an ethos of overcoming and getting the mission done, right? Whatever that mission is, there is an ethos that no matter what, we're going to get it done anyway, right? And so you're asking about parallels, and so
I
I'm
mean,
trying to think through some of the parallels, and there's a parallel in this conversation around people who, I call us quality people, where, I'd say I'm a quality guy, and it's supposed to be a joke. It's supposed to not a joke. It's supposed to be a play on words,
mhm,
because it speaks to the same kind of deep caring about all of the facets of what makes something great, right? And so there are product elements, there are people. Like you also mentioned agile, right? And we have this practice in agile. There's two parallels, and I'm doing this in my head quickly while we're doing this. So one is aviation and course correcting all the time. Cool. Because
right.
even on autopilot, an airplane is course correcting all the time,
Yeah.
up,
Course
down, left,
correction
right.
becomes the daily part, and it becomes your KRA. As soon as you enter the QA industry, course correction is what it takes, and it's what you got to learn on
It's
your
the
very
norm.
first day. Yeah, it is the
Yeah,
norm. It has become the norm,
yeah.
and rightly so.
And so there's the course correction, and then there's also that in order to be able to make course corrections, I need to have feedback often. Yeah. And so let's take the last 20 years of this industry, QA, right? QA, what does that mean? The evolution is the increasing pace of change is increasing, especially in this particular industry, right? With the AI, introduction of AI across the board. The course corrections that we need to be able to make have to be happening faster, right? They have to be happening faster, like in a not necessarily an agile world, but in a scrum world, which is like this small subset of agile. So in a scrum world, they've tried to like standardize this feedback loop where we deliver something every couple of weeks. It's kind of, it can be different for everybody, but let's just say for the sake of argument, we're just going to say it's every 2 weeks, and we want everybody in the organization to get on the same schedule, because if you're deploying stuff on a different schedule than me, we're just asking for trouble, right? And so
Right.
we try to get everybody on the same cadence, and then that cadence is intended to be able to get something out that we can integrate and we can all test and we can demo and can make it look end to end. Is everything functioning? Number one, did everything I build function the way I expected it
Right.
to? Number two, did I break anything that I built before? And that ability to validate on the go produces
Correct.
everything that we're building. So quality people. This is the parallel that I want to make, is this utter dedication to the cause, right? I know quality is this nebulous term, really nebulous, right? What was the book? There's a book by Piercing, something, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which has nothing to do with Zen. Well, as he mentioned Zen and motorcycles, of course, but it's all about the taxonomy of quality and all of the facets of quality. And he actually goes nuts thinking about it, right? There's so much to it. And then you have this entire um, career of people who are utterly dedicated to producing the highest quality stuff they can. But they need a couple of things. They need to know what the expectations are. And I'm not saying just the expectations for a particular story, right? Acceptance criteria, acceptance tests, whether we automate them or not, there's some declaration that says, yay, verily, I'm going to give this a thumbs up, right? And those
Right.
people are dedicated to understanding that deeply and then producing some way to make sure that it is validated with some data, right?
Data.
And there are people who have dedicated their careers to being able to do that. And over the last 20 years, the need for automation has increased in order to accommodate this fast feedback loop, right? The course corrections of the airplane going from New York to the West Coast, if I course correct a lot, that's the difference between landing in Seattle and LA. And I should do that LA and Seattle, right? With my hand.
Right.
Um, all right, so that's me talking a lot. Kapil's used to this,
So
but
this
not
is this
You
is
everybody's
know,
used
great.
to it.
Kapil, you have
this
something to
is
say here?
this is all great, Tom, and that's why,
Okay.
we are having this great conversation today. The one thing, like, either you do QA, you do development, or you do whatever you want to do, but bringing or having the energy like Tom have, having that kind of a super active kind of a person, right, that I have ever seen in my life. I remember, Tom, if you remember, the first, when I started working with you was back in 2010. I was on some assignments in Tom's
Goodness,
team.
Kapil. It's a long
And
time
I
ago.
got to know that, he is also from a military background and all. And I was a little scared. I'm going to meet with
Come
Tom.
on,
And
I'm a teddy
what
bear.
No, there are two things, Tom. Like when it
Mhm.
comes to scared versus fear, scared is something that you can remove by learning something. So it took me time for at least to understand Tom very well for 6 to 8 weeks. But when I understood Tom, that was kind of a shift left for me too as well, right? So what are those things like Tom, that keep you always super active? Right? Being I'm seeing you from since 2010 and today as well, and whenever you are gonna ask Tom, Tom, how are you? He always gonna say either awesome or amazing, right? It's not like good or something like this. So what are those secrets, Tom? How do you keep yourself so much, energetic, right?
I
Full of
guess it's
life.
just a lot of
Yeah,
coffee.
I
I
think
guess.
it's a lot.
A lot of coffee. Okay.
Oh, it's so funny. So you're talking about me, and so you're talking about me being scared. That's so funny. So I know she's probably not gonna be happy. I said, so my wife was a Marine. Okay, maybe you didn't know that. But she has a saying about being scared because she was scared in the Marines too, right? She because she repelled. I think she was in a recon unit before they were supposed to have women in recon, right? And so she was repelling. She was just when I first met her, I was trying to show off to her and tell her how I put together a group that went skydiving. And she's looking at me and she goes, "Yeah, I used to do that at night in the jungles of Okinawa." And then she turned back to her friends, right? And I talked to, after it's funny, but then I talked to her after we got married, and she's like, "Yes, well, because I believe it or not, I've a lot of times had a fear of public speaking, and I think that's a normal thing for most people. They
It
kind of
is
have a fear of
Yeah,
public
it
speaking, right?
is.
And so
indeed.
I had a lot of stuff to try and overcome that. And I would talk to her about it when I was like taking Toastmasters and all the things that we do to try and help ourselves overcome our fears. Yeah. And she was like,
I would keep a dictionary right next to my bed while growing up.
"Well, you did. That's
Yeah,
fabulous."
I mean
We
for
had a
for
giant
good
one.
12
Every
years
time
of
my
my
son
life.
would, yeah, my
Yeah,
son would
for
ask me,
12 years.
what does this mean? He hated it because I would go and I get this big Webster dictionary out. We would look it up together. Words are our friends, though, right? Words are our friends. She
Absolutely.
told me though that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is being scared and doing it anyway. And you asked me why I'm always so jazzed and enthusiastic in just the way that I am. And I have no idea, Capel. I have no idea why I am. I just am. And that's um maybe just an enthusiasm for being here every day, I guess. I don't know. But having the family I have, right? I've been, married for it feels like forever, like 38 years, like my wife says, 5 happy years. No, she doesn't. I'm just kidding. But having having been married for a really long time, having two boys, and now I've got grandchildren. Uh, I have no reason not to be thrilled to wake up every day. You know?
Awesome. Amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
This is
Go ahead,
amazing.
Akshay.
You've been married 40 years, 38 years.
Yeah. Oh, we were married for 38. We've been together for 40. But yeah, I don't know what to say about that. It just things have everybody has challenges, right? I mean, every
And oh yes,
what is it, Michelle says? So we have our young son's autistic, and so a lot of people don't know that about like people. And she's like, she has three rules. Number one, be kind. Number two, be kind. Number three, be kind. Right?
kind.
Because, and I really appreciate this with growing up with Mark. Everybody you meet is going through something that you know nothing about, right? And so when I talked, you were talking earlier about, I've been doing agile. I've been in IT for 40 years and I've been doing agile transformations for 20 something years, right? Large scale agile transformation for 20 something years. And everywhere that I go, I think it's the same reaction with Kapil. Remember when we first got together, Kapil, when I was making everybody do everything and it
Yeah.
feels like I'm ridiculously in charge, right?
Yeah,
And when you first go into an organization, somebody needs to be ridiculously in charge. And it just and there's some people that are going to get triggered, and you just can't worry about that because you got to get everybody rowing in the same direction. And so
right.
once you get everybody rowing in the same direction, people start to automatically judge. They judge themselves, They judge how quickly they're learning. They judge whether or not they got it right. And I just tell everybody, this is a long, long game. We're all in it for a long time. Give yourselves some grace, right? Give each other grace. We're all learning together. And I think that helps people to, you'll have to tell me whether or not this is true, Kapil. I think it helps people to, number one, to recognize that somebody is going to take ownership, right? Somebody is going to say, let's get
Right.
it done. Let's overcome whatever the challenges are. And to be that anchor, I think, for the team or the organization is the first thing you got to be able to do, right? And then the second thing that, to get them to trust you doesn't mean that you have all the answers, right?
Right. Yes.
It means that you're going to discover and invent what we're going to do together. There is no, the hole's not in my side of the boat. We are all in the same boat.
Right. Sometimes I use this analogy that when you're going in a car with your driver, you have your friends, your people, you're all heading to that same destination, but there's only one person driving you. And I think he knows best how to drive that car. That's why you're there with him. But is that journey complete without you being in that car? Of course not, because you all have to get there. So in the end, you need that one voice driving you through all the challenges. And of course, I mean, you're going to celebrate all the wins together. But at the same time, you need that one voice that can actually tell you that, hey, I mean, we need to course correct here.
Yeah. I think there's two things there. Kapil knows this. If you say anything, I'm going to jump in. So you got to interrupt me if you want. Okay.
I mean,
So
I'm
there's two
loving it.
things.
I know very well.
I totally agree with the analogy. We want one person to hold the steering wheel, but I am a team guy. Everything to me is the team. And me as the guy holding the steering wheel, I want to acknowledge that you're the navigator. I'm going
Yes.
to,
Oh,
you,
absolutely.
you,
You need a
we're,
co-driver, right? You need a
yeah,
co-driver.
we're going there
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
You don't just trust me and I don't just
Right.
trust you. And this whole team dynamic of highly effective teams, building trust, those are all really deep subjects that we probably don't have time for. But those are such powerful things that you
Thanks.
need to be able to create an ecosystem. It's not just the team level, it's the ecosystem that supports the team, right?
So true. So true.
Yeah.
You have been advocating for, I mean, for you, quality is a virtue. And I'm sure it applies to everything that you do in life after having spent, I mean, first, I don't know how many years in defense services, but then, 40 odd years in IT, right? You've seen multiple waves of change. And for some
Yeah.
organizations, still, quality assurance is still a gate or checkpoint. But for you,
Mm.
quality is a virtue, and rightly so. So, what is that fundamental difference here, and why does this mindset shift I mean, matter so much? I mean, for you, I mean, it's not just a checkpoint or a quality gate, right? I mean, it has to become a virtue. So, what's your take on it? Why do we need
Yes.
this mindset shift? Yes.
Yeah, so two things so I was in the Army National Guard. So I flew helicopters part-time while I did my 40-year career. And so that's why there's that overlap. It sounds like I got a 60-year career and I'm only 63 years old, right? So that's how I
Yeah.
got. So I went in the Army when I was 17, and it was the Army National Guard. So I got to be in the military the whole time I was also in, right? So I was putting punch tape into deck machines in the early
Right.
80s before we even had PCs. Okay, and so that's how I got that overlay. Now the other
My
question that you have
goodness.
is really interesting. So there's this perception that quality is like a point in time thing, right? I've got this quality gate, or like you use the term quality gate, right? And that's there's nothing that's inherently wrong
Right.
with that. Why can't it be both? Why can't it be a persistent state that I check and validate at a particular gate? Can it be both? Now, here's the thing. I want that gate
Yeah.
to be really simple and really quick. That means that I got to have quality top of mind every moment of every day. And it can't be a person. It's got to be an entire
Right.
organization, right? The entire organization has to recognize that this is not, it's not that it's non-negotiable, because it's always negotiable. Quality is always negotiable. And that brings a tear, right? It kind of hurts to, but that's the acknowledgement. Talk to the president of Boeing. Big mistake. Talk to Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, right? What's his motto? Go fast and break stuff. this is a company that is the most profound social media company in the history of humans, right? In history,
Yes.
right? With a
Yes.
motto of go fast and break stuff. So
Right.
it's not, so we have to recognize that the articulation of value has got to be put in the terms of the people who are the decision makers, the leaders, right? The people with the steering wheel. We have to give them the navigation tools to know whether or not the bridge is out. Yeah. I'm just taking your analogy a little bit further. Cool.
This is so profound in itself. Yeah.
Right, and so we have to
Yes.
give them the we and it's not a, so it's not a matter of numbers, because every time when we do our demo, why do we do a demo? Well, I already did all the acceptance criteria, it passed all my acceptance tests. Yeah, but the latency is 3 seconds. Nobody's
Right.
going to like that. Well, you don't know that until you get the subjective human feeling. You still have to have a human in the loop.
Right.
Yeah. So that subjectiveness of that human being saying, yay, verily, it meets all of our acceptance criteria, all of our, but I'm colorblind and I can't see. Right? Right? And
Right.
so we're not going to get the human out of the loop. There's incredible value to that,
Absolutely not.
as long as the person who's making the decisions has the distinctions of why that matters. And so it's incumbent upon us. Camille was saying, why are you so enthusiastic? Because this is fascinating. All of this stuff
Fascinating.
is fascinating.
Fascinating.
And if you're not absolutely fascinated by it, maybe you're not,
Cut out
a
for this.
quality person, right?
Yeah.
Because to me, this stuff, it's energizing, you know,
Yeah.
to
Indeed.
think about all of the facets of this.
Indeed.
There's a book by Lisa Crispin and Janet Gregory, right? And I know I introduced you to it, right, Kapil?
You
Agile,
introduce, is it related to invention versus innovator?
no, that's Denning and John Dunham. I think it's Dunham and Denning. So invention and innovation are, let's put a pin in that. Let's put a pin in that real quick, okay? And then we'll come back to that one, okay? But the Lisa
Sure.
Crispin book was called Agile Testing, and in it they have these quadrants where they speak to all of the human elements and the systemic elements of product, building products, right? Customer facing versus the performance, like your NFRs, all the NFRs that you were mentioned, right?
Right.
So there's this whole grid of where each of these are and which ones are really more amenable to automation so that we can speed up that feedback loop, right? Great stuff. But I know that I introduced you to this like 10 years ago or something, Capel. I'm pretty sure.
I think you did. I do
Yeah.
remember it now.
Yeah, you remember it
I
now?
do
Yeah.
remember.
And so
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
that whole thing. Well, every single one of those quadrants turns into a whole taxonomy of facets of quality, every one of the quadrants. And then inside of every one of them is constantly evolving standards, guidelines, tooling, practices,
Processes.
right? It's just, there's
Right.
just endless learning.
And
Perfect.
this is how you build the quality culture actually, right? So Tom, based on my experience working with different clients and all, now running a company and all, right? We even also face challenges while working with clients wherein, they don't have the quality culture in place. We have to work with them in order to ensure that, the quality is not just the responsibility of, the quality assurance team. QA is the integral part of your team, right? And they have to work on the pillars which are being defined for any organization's growth or taking the product to the success and all, right? So just sharing my 2 cents as well, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
even my next question was like, what different pillars you see as part of quality? So for me, like, if you are able to make that quality culture, if the quality culture is there, that's the main foundation that goes for any organization, right? If you are able to understand the business drivers, your customers and all, that's also one thing. So what are other things that you see, Tom, as part of the different of any different pillars of the quality actually for any organization and all or any product success?
I think
Yeah.
just drawing from that question, Tom, if you could, I mean, you spoke about some of the negotiable things, right? I mean, if you had to identify those three, four non-negotiable ingredients that
Right.
separate high performing organizations from the rest? What would they be?
Holy cow. Okay. So you guys hit me with three things, and I need to keep track of all of them. One was you made an assumption that we have made a cultural shift to appreciate quality and value it. And you said, given that you've done that, which I'm going to talk about how you can't just take that as a given. Then the second thing was you asked me about the pillars that would be fundamental to producing that, like operationalizing it. And then you asked me about another set of pillars. Actually, what were the ones that
Yeah,
you
I just
asked?
wanted to know, I mean, according to you, what are those two or three, four ingredients?
Fundamentals that are
Yeah.
necessary in order to make that.
Any
Okay, cool.
fundamentals
All
that
right.
separate high performing
Okay.
organizations? Yeah. From the
Okay.
rest.
Okay. Cool. Let's do the last one first. Really? Okay. Cool. So first of all, I want an organization. I want teams and organizations that have all the structures that are necessary in order to produce a flow of value. I need to have a structured organization. If I look at practices, that only gets me so far. If I look at culture, it only gets me so far. And that depends on what you mean by culture, right? A lot of people they got like their mission statement and their culture and their values on the
Right.
wall. And then you walk around and they don't behave that way at all, right?
Not at all.
And I mean, I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I'm just trying to acknowledge that it's not, the plaques on the wall are not always reflective of the actual. So my perspective on culture is that culture is for a large organization. Remember, I work with very large organizations. And so for a
Right.
large organization, a culture is the worst behavior you are willing to accept.
Okay.
I'm going to let that sink in for a minute, because if you look
Culture
at
is the
quality,
worst behavior to accept.
the worst behaviors you are willing to accept, right? Hey, that's an HR violation. So culture, here's your line.
Right.
We draw a line that says you can't do this. Well, culture is more than that. It's all the unwritten rules as well. The way that people
So true.
the way people actually behave, not the plaque. This is behavior that's not acceptable here, right? You don't do that. That's the actual operational culture of an organization. Now, how is that manifest and how does it relate? What's the parallel to quality? Well, what is quality? The worst behavior you're willing to accept. That's why we have quality standards. That's
Oh,
why
quality
we say that we want 80% automated test code coverage at the unit test level. That's why we say we want to have acceptance criteria that includes NFRs. That's why we say, that's document the stuff, is because we're making a claim that this is the worst behavior that we're willing to accept. It's the low bar. You must pass
Right.
this bar. That's why it's called a standard.
So
What has to be
Amazing.
in
that's
place?
interesting.
You got to have the structures, organizational, cultural, right, and practice-wise standards that represent the worst acceptable behaviors. Yeah. So your practices will only rise to that ecosystem, right? Your culture will only rise to the established ecosystem. The systems are the things that are like the ceiling.
Right.
If you try with anything else, then it doesn't have a system component. Cool. Then you were asking me, Kapil, about the practices that we want in an organization, right? So what are the
Different
things that are like
pillars,
the pillars? Yeah, the pillars. So
different
the
Yeah.
first
pillars.
pillar is creating an ecosystem that allows teams to become self-managing. I don't want the overhead of managers. I need leaders. Don't get me wrong. You were pointing it out, actually, right? Leaders,
Right.
especially leaders, are particularly important in a world that is constantly changing, right? When we are disoriented, fundamentally, we look to someone who we can trust to orient
Certainly.
us. It's just like this natural biological reaction of human beings to say, I'm disoriented. Who can help me?
Okay.
Right. So the fundamental thing is I want to create a space where I have leaders, but I don't necessarily have managers. I don't need people whose job is to tell other people what to do. I need a system that supports self-management. And that's what the whole idea of this agile world is to create Kanban boards that specify the work, put it in priority order, pull it across the board, have width limits so that I can focus and get stuff done. I don't need a manager. If I establish a system, right? Systems first. If I establish the system to support me, I don't need, I don't need a scrum master. The team can do it. I don't need
Right.
a delivery manager. The team can do it. And that's just the first step. The first step is to become self-managing. Then I want to create an ecosystem that supports them becoming self-organizing. We figure out what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, how we're going to do it. Those are all self-organizing practices. And then if we can get self-managing and self-organized, just real quick, let me just finish. So self-managing first, self-organized, then I can become self-optimizing. I become an observer of the flow of work, the flow of value. How fast does work get done? What's my cycle time, my lead time? What is my throughput? What's my throughput variance? What are all of those elements of quality that never get compromised because we set a standard, right?
Yeah, standard.
So
Right.
what are all of those elements? And then when I can start to become a great observer of the flow of as a team, not just one person, as a team, the team can become self-optimizing, self-managing, self-organizing, self-optimizing, and you must create an ecosystem that supports it. Cool?
Rightly said. Yeah.
This is
Awesome.
amazing.
That answer your
Amazing.
question?
I was going to ask you, Tom, how do you identify leader from a manager? Because
My
not all
gracious
managers can be
goodness.
great leaders.
No, I don't know that they can all be great leaders. So let's have a distinction. Okay, so I started writing on the difference between leaders and managers like 20 years ago. Okay, and there's a whole lot there. I'm going to keep it as straightforward as I can. Um, I'll give you an example. Just first, what do you see as a manager? Well, leaders manage resources. Cool. That's what they make.
Absolutely.
They focus on let's get stuff done. Yeah, get stuff done. Right.
Right.
Leaders
Right.
focus on
I think they should
vision.
lead by
What's the
example. I think
number one?
somebody who can lead by, right.
Yes,
And I'm sorry.
those are things that you do. What's the number one responsibility of a leader? Number one responsibility, other than producing followers, because that's the only way you're a leader is if you produce followers. Yeah. If you got no followers, you're not a leader, right?
Absolutely not.
So, what's the number one responsibility of a leader? It's to produce other leaders,
Leaders.
right? So, model the behaviors that you intend to see in others. What as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world.
I want to see in the
True.
world.
That's a true leader. That is a
Right.
definition of a leader is to be the change you want to see in the world. And your number one responsibility is to produce other leaders. If you don't produce leaders, you got nowhere to go because you're going to leave nothing in your way to you're always going to have to be operational. And that's a big difference. Leaders are visionary. They wake up every morning, they look in their crystal ball, and then they make big bets on whatever it is that they see. Whether they're right or wrong, they wake up every morning and they look into the future. Let's have an example. I listen to Shopify. The guy who is the CEO of Shopify. I think he put out like a memo or something to his whole company like 10 years ago or something that said your job, your everything that you do, first tool you turn to is an AI tool. And
All right.
and at the time it was shocking, and now it's obvious. But he looked in his
Yes.
crystal ball and he said, everything in the future is going to start with AI. I might as well make sure everyone that works for me knows AI, right? And so your first tool of choice, ready to hand tool that you need to know how to operate is AI, right? And that's a guy who looked in his crystal ball and he was visionary. That's a leader. Managers say, what tool are you using? I want you to use this tool instead.
This is great. And I think you've already addressed the elephant in the room, right? AI. AI. We are living in an AI first world. Everything is either AI led or AI powered. What is your take on AI powered quality engineering, AI led? And how have you embraced the principles of AI, agentic AI, in your quality discipline, Tom?
Poorly. I think I'm doing it poorly. I think I'm not good enough. And I think it's intelligent to acknowledge how poorly we, as almost everybody I know, even, and I have partners who have AI companies. Okay. uh, and there's so much and it's going so fast that none of us can keep up. So that's the first thing to acknowledge. And it's exciting and scary at the same time.
Is it the velocity at which it is progressing and it is advancing that it's becoming difficult to keep up with it because, until last year, we were talking about Gen AI, right? In 2025, we're talking about agentic AI. What's next? I mean, and of course, many transformation efforts fail because some teams or some people were not able to keep up with the latest
Huh?
trends, right? Agentic
Yeah,
AI being the poster child of the the entire IT revolution that we have seen, right? I mean,
yeah,
today everybody is talking about it. You go to these conferences, you go to these
yeah,
tech symposiums, everything starts with AI, ends in AI.
yeah. Well,
What's
there's
the
so
road
much
ahead?
here. So
And I
yeah,
think you
there's.
were in one of the conference too, Tom,
I did. Yeah,
recently, one of the AI, agentic
yeah.
AI conference too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. The biggest thing for me right now is that the human limitations, our conditioning with language. Okay, so what is a lot of AI is based on large language models. If we as human beings are not very good with language, we're not going to be very good with large language models because we just don't know. We don't know how to ask the question properly.
Questions.
There's a so this and this is really really old, you guys. I apologize for having an old reference, but the first book that I was reading on that addressed artificial intelligence at all was called Understanding Computers and Cognition by Terry Winograd and Fernando Flores. Okay, and I think it's like 1980 something.
I wasn't even born then.
Mhm.
I wasn't even born.
Yeah, yeah. And so there was the whole so it's talking about the book is more about cognition and biology and phenomenology and humans and one of the things though that stood out is we went through all of the linguistic understandings of how human beings process words, right? We have like I think of it in three. When we communicate, there's three things, and you guys talked about earlier. So this energy that I have, that's the somatics, the emotions of language, and so that's something that's actually how human beings really connect. And this is something AI can't do for us, right? Well, I mean, it probably will at some point. We'll have fake people that have emotions and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just saying that human beings respond emotionally. That's how
Right.
we like to rationalize that we made rational decisions, but we don't. We make emotional decisions and
Emotional
then we
dis-
rationalize it later,
Right.
right?
Yes,
And
like,
so there's the emotional connection that we produce as human beings. Then there's the descriptions like, that's yellow or that's blue or, whatever descriptive language we have, we're really good at descriptive language. And then the third thing is constitutive language, right? The Indian Constitution, we declare that we are free. What the American Constitution, we well, that was the Declaration of Independence. We hold these beliefs. I'm going to quote the wrong historical documents, which is terrible. As an American and a military guy, you should have these down.
It-
But the point is that constitutive language. I declare, when I declare something like when I stood in front of all my friends 38 years ago, when I said I do, right? That was a performative act, speaking the words, and so human beings are less adept at understanding speech acts, and this is part of what came up in that book that I just mentioned, right? So John Searle and oh, there's another guy. So these guys speak about there is performative language, constitutive, declarative language, right? So promises, like we have contracts because people break promises,
right.
declarations,
R-
apologies. There's a whole series of fundamental speech acts making an assessment. That's a declarative statement. I believe this is blue, right? So assertions, well, actually, this is blue. Well, I can't say blue because blue is an interpretation of all human beings, right? So, but I can say that this is an iPhone because we all agree that it's an iPhone, right?
Right.
And so there's assertions, assessments, promises, offers, requests. Those are performative actions that we do with language. And the challenge is for us to be able to contextualize our questions in such a way that it can be interpreted by a large language model that then gives us close to something that we're looking for. And the
Right.
better we get at understanding human language and those different parts, right? the
Right.
different elements of language. Some is descriptive, some of it is declarative. How do I get really good with this tool, this magic of being human called language,
Right.
in order to be able to effectively utilize this new suite of tools that is changing every day? The reason I
Yes.
bring this up is language is the connection point. It's the anchor point. It's almost like our personal API. And so this ability to understand context, provide that context in such a way that we convey our concerns, what we're trying to take care of, the horizon of time we're working in, all of the things that are necessary in order for it to know how to respond. Because if I go, like this is the example from the book, if I go and ask, is there water in the refrigerator?
Right.
Because I just mowed the lawn and I'm sweating. Well, the AI is going to say, yes, there's water there's water vapor in the orange, there's water vapor in the air. And my wife is going to say, no, there's no drinking water, right? She's going to know the context. She
Right.
knows the situation. She can see
Right.
it. Now, that ability to be able to communicate that to these tools, that internal, no assumptions. I make no assumptions,
Right.
Kapil, right? No assumptions. I can't assume quality is number one. I can't assume those things. And my ability to be able to contextualize my questions shapes the answer I'm going to be able to get and my effectiveness with the tools. And I have
I
such
mean, this is
long
such a
answers to stuff, you guys. I'm
I,
oh,
sorry.
absolutely. This is
yeah,
such a
I can
refreshing take on.
actually I can connect my days like, when I was back in 2010 and the Tom used to take that, weekly classes, like, I would say the meetings that used to happen and he used to drive. So I can connect with those things like, the trust, the communications, the
Oh, yeah.
offers, acceptance and all, right? So I was just trying to connect all that stuff.
Oh, this
It
is
all comes
amazing.
together again, doesn't it? It's like a deja vu for you right now, isn't it, Capel? Yeah,
Thanks, Tom.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. No, it's my pleasure. I hope that was entertaining for you guys as it was for me.
Oh, indeed. And I'm sure it'll be even more entertaining for our listeners.
Oh, cool.
Absolutely.
Right. So yeah, bringing you back to quality engineering, and keeping this topic of AI alive from your transformation experience. How do you see AI impacting the role of quality engineers? Do you see it augmenting? Are we looking at augmentation, or are we heading towards complete replacement? Which is, of course, a far-fetched thing. But what is your take on it?
So you're asking me to look in my crystal ball. So I absolutely believe that we're going to do everything we can to automate as much as we can, which has been the goal all along, right? For decades now, we've been trying to automate everything as much as we can. Because the part that I think we need to be able to shape our careers around is not necessarily that we are the people, and Kapil's going to remember when I said this 15 years ago.
Yeah.
We are not the people that necessarily have to do the testing, but we have to be people who ensure all of the testing has been done, right? So we are the people, somebody has to take ownership of maintaining that state of quality. Quality is not a gate, it's a state. And so that's, to me, a whole team responsibility. I have developers that need to test drive. And this ability to articulate the why, if the why is big enough, this is David Hussman. I miss David Hussman. David Hussman, he called it Dude's Law. If your why is big enough, you will overcome the how. If you have a big enough why, right? And
Right.
so being able to articulate to the whole organization why this matters helps them to adopt practices that are like test driving. Well,
Right.
the whole point is that in 2 weeks, we are going to bring up the entire app end to end. We're going to put the stuff that you've just built into there. And if it breaks anything, the customer's going to see it. That's that's not a good look. And I'm not
Right.
trying to be threatening. I'm not trying to be threatening. That's not the point. The point is that for this business to be able to move at the pace we need to move, we need to be able to always validate everything is working, everything is deployable, nothing breaks anything that worked before. All of the standards are always met, not just at the gate, always being met. It's a constant state of quality. And our march is towards always deployable. That's our march. Whatever the systems are that we have inherited, we are going to continuously streamline those and automate those. but someone still has to be a human in the loop who says, yea, verily, yes, people
People,
can use this. People like the way it works. People understand
right?
that UI, right?
I think we've already got a thumbnail. Quality is not a gate; it's a state.
It's a
This is
state.
amazing. It's a
Yeah.
state. I'm going to reflect on that after this podcast.
It's not
So,
that it's either or, because there's still gates, but it's
right,
always a state. Yeah, cool.
state. This is amazing. So, Tom, one last question. Looking back, what's been the most rewarding transformation you have been a part of, and how might AI has changed that transformation if it had been available? Although it has been available since
Yeah,
God knows when, but
yeah.
I mean,
So
the AI that we're using today, had it been available then, how do you think it might have impact that transformation?
it would be purely speculative to say anything about AI back then because this was 15 years ago. So when we did that transformation at Cengage, that was definitely the most rewarding. And there's a couple of reasons why. The thing was when I first started doing like agile transformations in I think it's 2002, 2003. The problem at the time was that it was like Canute trying to stop the tide. I mean, it was just there was the way things have always been done was pervasive. The whole idea of test driving that makes no sense at all. The whole idea of trying to even strive for agility, it wasn't resonating. And so I ended up going into these niche places where you had some people that was willing to try, some CEOs who were like, I know something's got to change. I don't know what. I'll try this. I'll try this. I'll try this. Right. And we, in the industry, we were figuring it out. And so there were no proven examples, right? And so I went to a couple of places, and Budco was one of them, where the CIO all in, he just moved 100%. Steve Swanson was fantastic, and he just totally moved everything in and said, "We're going to do this thing, right?" And so we did it as much as we could, and then some things changed, and the CEO changed, and but we had this opportunity for a few years to take a lot of really crazy ideas and try them out. And we had a whole bunch of people who loved it. Cool. And so then after the CEO changed and everything, I go to Cengage. When we first went to Gale, it was only a $300 million company, relatively speaking. Luckily, we had a whole bunch of people from Budco who said, well, let's go over there. We ended up with just like 30 people that I had already known and worked with before who were all in one place. And we were able to prove this thing. We made it work, and we made it work right, and it was fantastic. And then Cengage buys Gale and says, okay, you guys did it at 300 million a year. Now let's do it at 2 billion. Scale it. And so
Right.
going from this, can we make this work at all? I don't know, to holy cow, it actually works.
We made it work.
To holy cow, now we got to do it at scale. So for me, those were some fundamental stepping stones that could never be replicated, right? It was just like
Exactly.
everything fell in place. And the people that I got to know who are still like friends and work associates, like I'm working with people that I worked with 20 years ago, right? All of these great people that I got to work
Right.
with and I worked, right? So that was the genesis, was, being able to do it at one place where we proved everything worked, and then having somebody go, okay, let's go to X. Let's scale it by an order of magnitude, right? Let's scale
Right.
by an order of magnitude and let's see how it works this time, right? And that whole learning process, AI, I can't speculate what or how AI would have affected that.
Would have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But
even
that's my
Tom,
personal story, right? Everybody has a story like that.
Of
if I
course.
remember, it was around 2008, 9 or 10, especially 2009 is somewhere like, the SI transformation and all started. So I think this was your first kind of a transformation journey into the agile side, right? The story that you are telling about the CK side and all. Correct?
Well, I was at a place called Pillar in 2002 or three with Chris Beal, Ken Faw, Garrett Gaw. we were actually trying to get like test driving adopted at different companies. And so that was our first foray into agility. And so all of that was just pure consulting until I went to Spudco. And
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
yeah, it's my pleasure.
This is amazing. Always amazing speaking with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
I always feel like I
Today.
talk too much, but I suppose it's a
You
podcast, so I'm
don't.
supposed to.
You don't. You
Yeah.
don't.
Okay.
I love this thoroughly. I mean, this has been absolutely fascinating, Tom.
And these
Cool. Yeah.
podcasts cannot be for the silent people, actually, right? Somebody has to talk, actually.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah. Well, it was
That's why I
fun.
said freewheeling in the very first call, right?
Oh, yeah,
It'll be
yeah.
a freewheeling
Freewheeling. Yeah.
conversation.
Well, I don't
but
mind
your
freewheeling.
your energy is
Freewheeling works for me.
infectious.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful time.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Great.
Tom.
Thank you for joining, Tom. Couple. Before
Thank
we
you,
wrap
Tom.
up, yes, thank you,
And
Tom, for
thanks to
sharing your
Sneha.
insights and your
Thank you,
experience.
Sneha, as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks for helping us.